My blindness and naivete and ignorance about what I was getting into was stunning. It's a story about revolution, and it's a story about people, normal people, being thrust into the revolution. We don't have any, we don't have any Jedi, we don't have any lightsabers, right. We don't have any of that stuff. We want you to do a piece about revolution and insurrection and authoritarian power. It's this epic rise of fascism and authoritarianism and takeover, and it's a whole bunch of people oppressed, backed into a corner, having to react. And it's literally history coming and kicking down the door of all the people that are there. And it was about revolution and rebellion and what happened to ordinary people.
I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
I'd rather die trying to take the world.
If I died tonight, was it worth it? Look at me!
What is a revolution? What compels a people to rise up against a vastly superior foe? To denounce a life of thievery for something much greater than themselves? To defy laws, fines, threats of violence, and fear altogether? And to break out into song at the barricade? For if you asked Victor Hugo, the author of the massive 5-volume novel the world-renowned Les Miserables musical is based on, revolution is revolt, and revolt is composed
of nothing and of everything, of an electricity disengaged little by little, of a flame suddenly darting forth, of a wandering force, of a passing breath. This breath encounters heads which speak, brains which dream, souls which suffer, passions which burn, wretchedness which howls and bears them away.
As dramatic as he sounds, Hugo did know a thing or two about revolt. He witnessed one. In the streets of Paris on June 5th, 1832, Hugo was caught between barricades and a tense exchange between National Guard and the French mob. One that grew from a funeral procession for General Jean-Maximilien Lamarck, a beloved public figure and outspoken critic of King Louis-Philippe I, who had unceremoniously come to power just 2 years prior during the July Revolution. In that time, Philippe had restored the monarchy and led the country into an economic crisis and a cholera epidemic, which claimed Lamarck's life. Now, the people, who had long felt betrayed, would be silent no longer. As thousands upon thousands of Parisians gathered in the streets to join Lamarck's coffin as it strolled by on carriage, vigorous speeches soon turned to the throwing of stones, then to barricades and gunfire. In the end, the revolt never spread beyond Paris, and what became known as the June Rebellion barely lasted 24 hours. If it was a revolution, it was a failed one. The thief-turned-mayor Jean Valjean, police inspector Javert, and the entire cast of characters from Les Mis were not real people, nor did Les Mis represent what happened that day with stunning accuracy. But if it weren't for Victor Hugo's novel and the 1980 musical, the people who died at the barricades in 1832, virtually for nothing, might never be remembered as they are. The June Rebellion, nothing more than a flash in the pan of France's long revolutionary history. Indeed, revolution is not singing at the barricades, but a major, sudden, and hence typically violent alteration in government. It is smashing the old and replacing it with something new. Revolutions have occurred over and over throughout human history, not just the last 400 years of modern political revolutions, but arguably all the way back to the earliest empires of Sumer and Akkad. For as long as someone, somewhere is being oppressed, there will always be heads which speak, brains which dream, souls which suffer, passions which burn, and wretchedness which howls. A sentiment that has resonated with generations of activists, artists, revolutionaries, and rebels alike. Tony Gilroy had never thought of himself in such terms, but maybe it was time to reconsider that. For the writer, director, and script doctor, history had long been one of his favorite pastimes, particularly the topic of revolution. Though he never explored it in any of his films, he came close a couple of times, especially in his post-production work on the Star Wars spin-off Rogue One, which he described as a Battle of Britain movie. But by the time Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy offered him the chance to work on another Star Wars spin-off in 2017, Gilroy had already moved on. He was not a Star Wars fan, and Rogue One, for what it was worth, was nothing more than a job. And it still wasn't, even after another Lucasfilm script crossed his desk in early 2019. A pilot for a TV series prequel to Rogue One about the characters of Cassian Andor and K-2SO, written by Jared Bush and produced by showrunner Stephen Schiff. Ever the script doctor that he was on Rogue One, Gilroy was now being called upon once again to give his honest thoughts. And his thoughts were not positive.
And I read it, and it was very cool and slick, but it was never going to work. Because they kept trying to make a show with the two of them storming the Citadel, you know? That was the pilot. They tried to make it a, Butch and Sundance, Cassian and the robot go and save the Tesseract or whatever. And they were smart. I don't know what the hell you're going to do after episode 5. I mean, what are you going to do? Just storm the Citadel every week? You can't do that every week. Or you could. I don't know who's going to watch that. It was smart shit, but it was like, wow, what do you do on, you're going to run out of story nutrients very quickly.
Despite his reaction, the solution to Kennedy's problem seemed obvious. And so, he wrote her a letter. What Kennedy received back was not just the honest feedback she was looking for, it was a manifesto, and a bit of a dare. If you really wanted to tell the story of Cassian Andor, it should start like this. You need to double down on what Rogue One built. A version of the Star Wars universe defined not by Jedi, lightsabers, or the Force, but by ordinary people in complicated circumstances.
This is something amusing.
Definitely not.
What does that mean?
You need to tick back the clock to a time when Cassian was not a fully formed rebel captain, but someone far less capable and kind of pathetic.
It's not your girlfriend or something, is it?
I don't have a girlfriend.
But most of all, you need to ground the story in the same real-world cloth that Rogue One was cut from, that Lucas's Star Wars was cut from, where Death Stars symbolized nuclear bombs and blasters were kit-bashed World War II weapons. Except, this would not be a galaxy at war. Not yet, anyway.
Stop right there! We're in free-world corporate zone, you know that, right?
This would be a galaxy in the darkness, oppressed by an empire representative of monarchs, tyrants, and fascists from as far back as the empires of Sumer and Akkad, where laws, fines, threats of violence, and fear are used not to instill order, but to maintain control. Where the gun at one's head keeps people like Cassian from ever climbing up or reaching out.
I'm looking for my sister.
It would be a galaxy not unlike our own, but packed into a Star Wars-shaped powder keg. Because when it explodes, if it explodes, it might just unleash a revolution.
Tell me now! Tell me what to do! Let's hear it, boss!
I also was testing Disney, testing everybody. Say, okay, I'm going to send my opening scene. I'm going to send him to a brothel to look for a missing sister, and on the way out, he's going to get rousted by some really dirty cops, and he's going to have no choice, but he's going to kill them. Can we do that?
Tony Gilroy never wanted the job, but because of his letter, it would be his. Like the generations of Victor Hugos before him, Gilroy was on his way to crafting something truly radical. Unlike his predecessors, it would be part of one of the most critically and commercially successful franchises in film history. But all in due time. First, someone needed to light that powder keg. Following his letter, Kennedy formally invited Gilroy to write and direct their show by October 2019. Gilroy finally accepted, and would become the showrunner by April 2020. At the first writer's room, he brought with him a staggering 80-page show Bible titled The Education of Cassian Andor. It would eventually be shortened to Andor. For the next 6 days, Gilroy, his brother Dan Gilroy, House of Cards creator Beau Willimon, Chernobyl producer Sana Wallenberg, and Chernobyl production designer Luke Cole broke the entire story of the show, line by line, detail by detail. And there were a lot of details.
My primary writing partner, if I had to say, is Luke Hull, who's the production designer. Everything starts with Luke and I talking about what, okay, we have to build this plan and build this plan. To be honest with you, it's really serious fun. You get to play God.
Inspired by Revolution, Andor would be a vehicle to dive deep into all the uprisings, rebellions, and resistance movements Gilroy had spent his whole life reading about. The English Revolution, the American Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, the Mexican Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, and the Iranian Revolution were all huge points of reference for Gilroy, and among a vast list of historical movements and figures that are, at times, directly recreated in Andor. But no bit of history would be more influential on the show than the three great movements that arguably rocked the globe more than all other revolutions. The 1789 French Revolution, where the people of France abolished the Ancien regime and declared the First French Republic. The Russian Revolution, which began at first in 1905 as a worker and peasant-led revolt against Tsar Nicholas and the Russian monarchy, but evolved into the violent expulsion of the Tsar's government by the Bolshevik Party in 1917. And last, but far from least, the many rebellions and uprisings against European colonial rule over the 20th century, especially after World War II, and primarily against the British Empire.
I don't have to pull a comp from the headlines. I have 4,000 years worth of history to pull from. I can cherry pick all through every revolution that I know about, and they're all different and they're all the same, but this happened here, and this is the French Resistance, and this is the Haitian Revolution, and oh my God, this is Thomas Paine, and this is the Russian Revolution, and this is what happened in the show trials, and this has happened,
Revolutions are messy, and nowhere near as glamorous as they're often portrayed in pop culture. The line between good and evil is not always so clearly defined, nor do all revolutions have noble outcomes. As versed in the topic as he was, even Gilroy would fail to reflect every nuance of revolution in his pitch. But he also wasn't trying to. As a storyteller, Gilroy wanted to explore what happens when history comes knocking at one's door. When moments ripped right from the history books repeat in the form of current-day headlines, or at least the HoloNet gossip of the Star Wars galaxy.
Got anything from Aldani?
Excuse me?
Big rebel attack last night, it's all the news.
It advanced the conversation Rogue One had with its audience, when seemingly ordinary people living under a military dictatorship were called upon to stop a weapon of mass destruction. In Andor, ordinary people are confronted with something far more mundane by comparison, but no less oppressive: the everyday realities of fascism, from small, seemingly harmless ordinances to large-scale colonialist and imperialist projects. The overarching goal of these projects, as it is with fascism itself, is not just conquest, but coercion, to concentrate power under one violently uncompromising national identity, an extreme form of something called nationalism.
Fascism is a mass political movement that emphasizes extreme nationalism, militarism, and the supremacy of the nation over the individual, in contrast to liberal democracies that support individual rights, competitive elections, and political dissent. In many ways, fascist regimes are revolutionary in nature.
They advocate for the overthrow of existing systems of government and the persecution of political enemies. However, such regimes are also highly conservative in their championing of traditional values, and although fascist leaders typically claim to support the everyman, in reality, their regimes often align with powerful business interests.
In the quest to capture the realities of fascism, capturing the true nature of its disciples became equally important. Contrary to the Sith Lords or military generals of the original Star Wars trilogy, the Empire shown in Andor is much more in line with Orson Krennic from Rogue One. An empire of middle managers, boardroom executives, and 9-to-5 desk jockeys, far more preoccupied with their careers, longevity, or paychecks than any of the moral or ethical consequences of what they are facilitating. The kind of people that German philosopher and political theorist Hannah Arendt observed in the trial of Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann, and later wrote about in her 1963 book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the banality of evil.
Some years ago, reporting the trial of Eichmann in Jerusalem, I spoke of the banality of evil, and meant with this no theory or doctrine, but something quite factual. The phenomenon of evil deeds committed on a gigantic scale, which could not be traced to any particularity of wickedness, pathology, or ideological conviction in the doer, whose only personal distinction was perhaps an extraordinary shallowness. However monstrous the deeds were, the doer was neither monstrous nor demonic, and the only specific characteristic one could detect in his past as well as his behavior during the trial and the preceding police examination was something entirely negative. It was not stupidity, but a curious, quite authentic inability to think.
I'm really interested in what people wake up in the morning, I guess, and what is really driving them. I think just as many Nazis were driven by who had the best parking place and who had the best corner office and who got the best piping as anything else.
Dude, it's so much. Yes, so much, yes.
The banality of evil.
Andor revels in this banality, in an empire even more entrenched in departments, trigger laws, and bureaucrats than Rogue One's empire, kept in line by the fear that there is always someone up the chain to make one's life a living hell. A fear fully underlined by the Preox Morlana corporate security.
Find it.
You'd have to filter the entire night.
Well, if it's too much for you, let me know. I'm sure somebody wants the chair.
To history, and to Tony Gilroy, these corpos might represent the Rurales, the mounted police force President Porfirio Diaz would deploy against unrest in the countryside during the Mexican Revolution, or the Royal Ulster Constabulary, the RUC for short, in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, a conflict that saw frequent police raids and killings against civilians and Irish Republican Army fighters resisting United Kingdom rule. The corpos even bear similar colors to the Orange Order, a Protestant group that opposed an independent Ireland and was directly affiliated with the RUC during the Troubles. The role of the corpos, as it has always been of most police forces during fascist regimes, is not so much to protect the community as it is to protect the state's interests, the Empire's interests.
Corporate tactical forces are the Empire's first line of defense, and the best way to keep the blade sharp is to use it.
And for Deputy Inspector Cyril Karn, played by Kyle Soller, and based on Les Miserables' very own Javert, the corpo's obligations don't end there.
This is the murder of 2 Primor employees!
They have a duty to pursue justice, at any cost and under every circumstance, no matter how complex they might be. For Cyril, like many who've grown accustomed to the Empire, the nuances of reality have never been anything more than chaos to be controlled.
There comes a time when the risk of doing nothing becomes the greatest risk of all.
Ferrix, the world where such chaos has allegedly played out, embodies the sort of place you see in many revolutions, a colony or state beyond the seat of the Empire where rebellious activity unfolds. Belfast during the Troubles, or the Morelos Commune during the Mexican Revolution, which was the home of revolutionary Emiliano Zapata and Mexico's sugar crop industry. And much like Ferrix to the greater galaxy, Morelos was a microcosm of events that unfolded throughout Mexico over the 10 or so years of the revolution. But when Ferrix is first introduced, it is far from overthrowing the yoke of oppression. The people of Ferrix are salvage workers, sellers of aftermarket ship parts and equipment, like a Star Wars take on Motor City Detroit. By no means is Ferrix an essential part of the Empire, but it's no less vulnerable to the effects of Imperial taxation and police surveillance.
I'm old enough. I first came here. You could drive in across the wasteland. They had a ground carry. Drive right through. Now it's this.
Check the shelves.
Between its corporate supervision, endless toil, drab appearance, and inescapable cold, Ferrix could very well come off as a cliché dystopia. Its people condemned to work the same dirt they've known their entire lives for meager profits. What keeps it from feeling that way, and what Gilroy wanted to put at the forefront of Ferrix, is its community. The cast of characters we meet on Ferrix, though sprawling, all know each other closely, and have so for a long time. The banging of metal pans, parts, and lids to alert others to police activity echoes a form of protest against police raids during the Troubles, or a similar tactic called cacerolazo in South America, which in itself dates back to the 1830 July Revolution. And though industry and commerce occupy so much of the Ferrixians' existence, they've effectively made a culture of enduring it. From the communal wall of gloves the salvage workers wear, to the time grappler's very serious ritual of sounding the beginning and end of the workday. A job that could be done by a clock. What makes Ferrix special is that it's done by a person. Yet for Diego Luna's Cassian Andor, community means as little to him as the dirt beneath his feet. Cassian is a loner, isolated even by the camera that follows him on Rick's road. As a thief, he's Les Miserables Jean Valjean incarnate, the kind of man who might have been considered honorable among the overtaxed peasantry of revolutionary France. But to his friends, family, and creditors, Cassian is a lowlife, a bum, a leech.
I want my deposit back. I'm not lending you any money.
No more favors, no more deals. Finish up. Get out. Don't come back.
It hasn't always been like this. As a child on Canary, young Casa lived in relative harmony among his peers, in a Lord of the Flies-like tribe of other orphan children, until he gleaned what likely killed all their parents and was on its way to destroy what remained of their people. The fate of Canary evokes endless parallels to indigenous tribes displaced by mining operations over the last hundreds of years and even up to today, but the Canary language, a blend of Spanish, Portuguese, and Magyar, alludes specifically to the fall of the Aztec Empire, when Spanish conquistadors ravaged Aztec lands for gold and silver deposits, forcing the Aztecs to work and die in their mines as slaves. Casa is saved from enduring a similar fate by Marva and Clem Andor, played by Fiona Shaw and Gary Beadle respectively, but at the cost of losing his true home and community. Though he lives today, he is not well nor sure of his place on Ferrix, a feeling that, in the mind of Diego Luna, who executive produced the show with Gilroy, resonates with the experience of many Latin Americans who emigrated from Mexico, and frankly, the experience of countless refugees throughout history and throughout the world, who've all dealt with some measure of rejection, loneliness, and discrimination, especially under fascist regimes, hostile to any minority outside the established national identity, and keen to blame the nation's ills on those minorities.
What he swam over? Swim over, Scrono.
It's the story of a migrant. That feeling of having to move is behind this story, very profoundly and very strong. That shapes you as a person. It defines you in many ways and what you are willing to do.
As such, Cassian is opposed to not just the Empire, but any kind of collective at all. Not if it doesn't resemble the one he was forced to let go of. The one he is desperate to reclaim even a small part of. And if he walked among us, he'd be just as opposed to any and all historical comparisons we'd make of him. Because if any of it were true, it would mean his circumstances weren't as unique as they so often feel.
Mix has nothing to do with
Well, then who told these primo bastards about Canary?
That would be me.
Until then, his every interaction, even with the people who do care about him, like Audrey Arjona's Bix Colleen or Joplin Sibtain's Brasso, will be transactional, a means to an end. That's the hand he was dealt, and it's all he has to give.
we alone? I am.
But Cassian's latest client, played by Stellan Skarsgård, won't walk away without a bargain. Because he's not a dealer of rare parts and equipment. Not even close.
The arrogance is remarkable, isn't it? They don't even think about us.
Boss, I don't know you.
In the mid-18th century, his name might have been Maximilien Robespierre, a progressive and radical leader of the French Revolution. In the early 19th century, Simón Bolívar, a freedom fighter and revolutionary leader in the war for Spanish-American independence.
These days will end, Cassian Andor. The way they laugh, the way they push through a crowd.
In the mid-19th century, he might have been Giuseppe Mazzini, a political activist for Italian liberation from the Habsburg monarchy.
The sound of that voice telling you to stop, to go, to move. Telling you to die. Rings in the air, doesn't it?
And he could have been one of many men in pre-revolutionary Russia that conspired against Tsar Nicholas II and secret revolutionary societies. Pavel Axelrod, Julius Martov, or Georgy Plekhanov, the father of Russian Marxism.
They'll think about us soon enough.
We should get moving.
Soon enough, I'll have something else to listen to.
But one figure from history stands more clearly before Cassian than all the rest. Vladimir Lenin, the fearless leader of the Bolshevik Party and spearhead of the Russian Revolution. A man who was as unsavory in character as he was devoted to revolution, eager to make a revolutionary out of just about anyone who had awoken to the evils of the Tsar and gained class consciousness, an awareness of one's place among a working class opposed to the ruling class.
Who are you?
In Andor, his name is Luthen Rael, and every revolution seems to have a man just like him. More common though, and true of what Luthen sees in Cassian, is the revolutionary soldier. The fodder, the gravel from which the road to freedom will be built. The sort of face that is sometimes lost in the endless, ever-shifting sea of history, but fuels the engine of revolution nonetheless. That revolution, and the man upon whom the scope of history already weighs greatly, have finally come knocking on Cassian's door.
Don't you want to fight these bastards for you?
But of all people for history to call upon, why him? Why today? And just what is he supposed to do against the forces of a totalitarian galactic empire? It's less than pointless. It's suicide. Given those odds, he'd sooner bet on his own survival.
We left the box.
What Cassian fails to accept is that the call of history isn't a choice. Not if it's been knocking this loud and for this long.
Gets to you, doesn't it?
Instead, it's an ultimatum. Join the revolution.
That's what a reckoning sounds like.
Or step aside. Your wants, dreams, or moral comfort are no longer in the conversation, only whether you're in or out. How Cassian responds will have drastic consequences for not only him, but the community he's so often ignored. A community who would risk their survival for one of their own. The Corpos, like any monarch, tyrant, or fascist, could never understand that, nor what the nobodies on Ferrix are capable of. But soon enough, they'll know the feeling of the gun pointed at their head. Soon enough, they'll all be exposed for the cowards they are when those nobodies retake the power. To Luthen's credit, Cassian has much more to offer than he realizes. So much more. At the center of those memories from his childhood on Canary, memories that are reignited by his displacement from yet another community, is a willingness to act. More than his loneliness or his desperation to return home, there's a remarkable courage in Cassian. Someone who took it upon himself to take on whatever killed his friend and destroyed their community, who defied the troopers who hung his father in Rixroad Square, and he refused to take part in the Empire's war on Mimban. Today, he may be far more interested in his continued survival than serving any kind of cause. But in the flight from Ferrix, as he takes his first steps into a larger world, Gilroy gives Cassian and the audience a small glimpse into his revolutionary future. A small glimpse at everyone's future. History has called upon Ferrix, and everyone will answer that call differently. Even Cyril Karn has a role to play, though after today, he may fear to acknowledge what that role entails. It's not destiny. There's no such thing in the life of Cassian Andor, nor in the lives of the ordinary people from whose perspective Andor is so rooted. But it might start to feel like everything that ever went wrong, for the galaxy, and especially for you, happened for a reason. That whatever feeling you couldn't let go of from back then might finally be something other than painful now. It might finally be useful.
When my parents embarked to the United States, my mother was pregnant with me. They were able to do this through a coyote, or someone that helps people cross the border unlawfully. A truck picked them up from Mexico City to Puerto Sonora. They then walked 34 hours through the desert without food or anywhere to stop. A car picked them up, then took them to Tucson. They anxiously waited a week in an empty house for someone to take them up north to Minnesota and then finally to Chicago. During their excruciatingly long trip, my mother sat inside a hot vehicle, exhausted, nauseated, sore, and swarmed by other people who were in pursuit of the same dream.
After a lengthy pre-production period, director Toby Haynes met with cast and crew to shoot Andor's first block of episodes at London's Pinewood Studios in November 2020. Their set, arguably the most ambitious of its kind in recent Lucasfilm history, was roughly 5 city blocks in length, every building, interior, and street of Ferrix brought to life exactly as Gilroy and Luke Hull had envisioned it back in the writer's room. Beyond Ferrix, Hull was to design the look of Coruscant, Aldhani, Narkina 5, Niamos, and Segra Milo. Most would be shot on location, but everything within those locations had to be designed. Unlike Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni's Mandalorian production in Los Angeles, Gilroy was not interested in pushing technical boundaries with innovations like stagecraft. Andor would be shot the old-fashioned way, with practical locations and effects. A commitment that, for a show set in a galaxy far, far away, was far easier said than done.
Everything has to be designed and chosen. And it's not just the casting, it's not just the color of the hair, it's not just the sash on his robe, it's not just the weapon, it's not just the scene, it's all of it.
By now, Andor was even more ambitious than Gilroy's original pitch. What began as an 80-page outline had exploded into 700 pages of screenplay, split across 12 episodes with almost 200 speaking roles, thousands of props and costumes, and countless visual effects. The COVID-19 pandemic had loomed over the show since Gilroy joined in early 2020. Even as filming began, Gilroy was overseeing the entirety of Andor's UK-based production from his home in New York. Andor very well could have died before it began, if it wasn't for the runaway success of The Mandalorian. But all was not lost for Gilroy. Planning ahead for his on-set absence, Gilroy and his writers turned in scripts that were heavy on details. Countless conversations with Hull and costume designer Michael Wilkinson ensured everything the cast and crew could ever need would be there on day one.
I remember in Marva's house, and I said I think I should open that shelf. We should see if we can put something in the shelf that I can use to. And then I go and I open the shelf and it's all cooking stuff. I mean, I don't even have to talk to props. This is already happening. This is a house. Yeah. And there's a logic behind this house. That specificity, the shelf could have never been opened, you know? Yeah. And the stuff was gonna be there anyway.
As such, what needed to be filmed episode to episode was specific. How it needed to be filmed was left entirely up to the crew's discretion on the days of shooting, an approach that, ironically, gave directors even more ownership over their episodes.
I'm not sure I was entirely in charge of what I think has emerged. I mean, we talked about that last time, about how much of the show making and how much of the process is a surprise to me in the end, in a weird way, that the larger things reveal themselves. We just kept hammering all the way, and in the end, you end up with this other thing.
Though Pinewood would be a mainstay for much of the production, director Susanna White and her crew would be splitting most of their time between the Scottish Highlands and London for the second 3-episode arc of Andor. Even in location scouting, Gilroy found inspiration in the real-world history behind certain locations and fused that history with the worlds of Andor. The Empire's forced relocation of the Aldhani Highlanders into the lowlands closely parallels the infamous Highland clearances over the 18th and 19th centuries, where greedy Scottish landlords forcibly evicted tenants and farmers from their homes to work in overcrowded communities.
40,000 Aldhanis all across the Highlands. They were here for centuries, but it only took the Empire a decade to clear them out.
Kill them?
No. Drove them south. There's an enterprise zone in the lowlands. Factories, new towns, imperial housing. Aldhani has the unfortunate quality of being close to nothing and not very far away from everything.
In Arab history, the takeover of Aldhani might resemble the 1948 Nakba, when over 700,000 native Palestinians were violently expelled from their lands to create the State of Israel. And in North America, the Donnie's mass exodus echoes the Trail of Tears, a death march where 60,000 Native Americans were forcibly relocated across the country. Both go down in history as clear examples of ethnic cleansing and genocide, though some still refuse to acknowledge them for what they were. Denial of the Nakba in particular was and continues to be a contentious matter in the Israeli government, who, at the time of this video's release, are actively committing a genocide against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. Free Palestine.
The Danis, they're a simple people. They breed a sad combination of traits that make them particularly vulnerable to manipulation. Their deeper problem is pride. The Danis would rather lose. They'd rather suffer than accept. Which is wildly ironic, because they basically choked down everything we've thrown at them these last 12 years.
The history of these tragedies echo loudly in the vast emptiness of Aldhani, especially after the onset of COVID saved Susanna White from finding the thousands of extras they originally wrote to appear in the valley. On Aldhani, history truly does repeat itself.
Get down, Cookie!
Orbiting Coruscant.
Coruscant, in more degrees than it has ever been portrayed, mirrors Aldhani with an emptiness of its own. Assembled from apartment buildings, subway stations, and outdoor theaters throughout London, Coruscant embodies the former seat of the most powerful empire in the history of the modern era to surreal effect. The clash of retro-futuristic design against Soviet-style brutalism depicts the slow invasion of totalitarianism into all areas of society, even its architecture. While the outside of the Imperial Security Bureau headquarters is likely based on the Tsitsa Nakabird, a monument to the Armenian genocide perpetrated by the Ottoman Empire during World War I, what goes on inside the building is that much more ironic. The ISB are the Empire's secret police. They're MI6, the FBI, the Okhrana and pre-revolutionary Tsarist Russia, the NKVD in Soviet Russia, the Gestapo in Third Reich Germany, Savak in revolutionary Iran, or, to the Armenians of World War I, the Committee of Union and Progress. In every revolution, they're the counter-revolution. And to every revolutionary, there are few forces of tyranny that create more obstacles.
We are healthcare providers. We treat sickness. We identify symptoms. We locate germs, whether they arise from within or have come from the outside. The longer we wait to identify a disorder, the harder it is to treat the disease.
Through the ISB, Gilroy and White take Hannah Arendt's banality of evil full throttle. Not only are its members fully indoctrinated into Imperial thinking, but they've practically made careers of outdoing each other's evils. Even as a viewer, watching Denise Goff's Dedra Miro navigate the thorny bureaucracy of the ISB registers as a career-driven woman trying to make a name for herself in a male-dominated playing field. Next to her peers, she feels not like a perpetrator, but a victim, always working 10 times harder just to be acknowledged.
Is it worth creating this much intra-office friction in the pursuit of what seems like a straight-up case of a robbery gone awry?
While there is some truth in that, the greater shock is that Dedra is sympathetic, a notion that, in itself, highlights a deeper truth about what Arendt observed in Eichmann's trial. You don't even have to work for the Empire to become part of the problem.
Evil is perpetuated when immoral principles become normalized over time by people who do not think about things from the standpoint of others. Evil becomes commonplace. It becomes everyday. Ordinary people, going about their everyday lives, become complicit actors in systems that perpetuate evil.
By focusing on Dedra's underdog struggle and not what she plans to do once she wins that struggle, over time, Gilroy and White make the audience complicit supporters in Dedra's ambitions. We become complicit in our own oppression.
2 more files each.
The trap of fascism is believing that one can be insulated from its effects so long as they don't directly support it. But fascist systems don't need popular support to erase your rights, politicize trustworthy institutions, and commit greater and greater evils. Not after they've been elected anyway. They just need an excuse.
It took the combined ingredients of idiocy, ineptitude, and total disengagement for this farce to have reached the full apex of incredulous disaster. Seriously?
All democracies have certain functions that operate with some independence from partisan political actors. Central banking, law enforcement and courts, official statistics, financial accounting and regulation, election administration, intelligence, and national security all only work properly when appropriately protected from politics. These institutions are ripe targets for capture by autocratic factions, in whose hands they become weapons toward adversaries, shields against accountability, or worst of all, levers of large-scale manipulation and corruption.
From the corpos all the way down to everyday devices, everyone and everything is slowly being nationalized by the Empire, a long shadow stretching over every world they touch. They haven't nationalized everything yet, but it won't be long before everyone walks right into the trap. A trap that most people on Coruscant have either ignored or grown far too comfortable with. Those of status and privilege practically live in the sky, safe from all immediate effects of Imperial oppression.
Free your mind, Senator. This is a place where time stands still. It's hard being surrounded with this much history and not be humbled by the insignificance of our daily anxiety.
The less privileged, middle-class contingent of Coruscant live further down and further from the safety of ignorance. Though, in the case of Cyril Karn, he and his mother Edie, played by Catherine Hunter, are not far down enough to understand why the light shines so rarely upon them, if at all.
Everything says something, Cyril.
What is it that you hear my caller saying?
Look at me. I don't believe in myself. I am desperate for approval.
Everyone else who does see the Empire for what it is either chooses to do nothing about it or is too tired to do anything about it. In this, Andor demonstrates not just the dominance of the Empire at every rung of society, but their ability to overwhelm all potential resistance through widespread shows of power, echoing a 1996 US military doctrine that defined such a tactic as a means to induce shock and awe.
I mean, it's so confusing, isn't it? So much going wrong, so much to say, and all of it happening so quickly. The pace of oppression outstrips our ability to understand it, and that is the real trick of the Imperial thought machine. It's easier to hide behind 40 atrocities than a single incident.
This very emphasis on the rungs of society, literally transposed onto the verticality of Coruscant, matters for the same reason those rungs matter in every revolution. Whether it's the aristocracy at the top, the bourgeoisie in the middle, or the peasantry at the bottom, all have had corresponding roles to play. Late 19th century Russian revolutionaries believed in going to the people, living among the peasantry to radicalize them into foot soldiers against the Russian Empire, until realizing they were too oblivious to the evils of the Tsar to be swayed. Reflecting on past revolutions in Europe, revolutions in 1848 looked to bourgeois lawyers and business owners to lead the revolutions in their respective countries, until they betrayed the revolution to side with the crown. The aristocracy, often linked with the monarchies that many revolutions try to overthrow, have rarely been counted on nor so willing to put their fortunes on the line. except for the ones who did. The liberal nobles in the French Revolution, who battled tyranny through secret clubs like the Republic of Letters, or the Society of 30, where socialites like Senator Adrien Duport held house parties with other members to plan revolutionary activity in secret. Or statesman Oliver Cromwell in the English Revolution, a descendant of rich landowners who advocated for the execution of Charles I, temporarily abolishing the English monarchy to become Lord Protectorate of the Commonwealth of England. And, of course, Chandrilan senator, socialite, and future rebel leader Mon Mothma, played by Genevieve O'Reilly.
If you can't deliver, I need to know.
Do you think I'm not trying?
I never think that. But I need to start planning if you're no longer coming through for us.
The money's there. It's just getting very dangerous to move it around.
Revolutions were sort of steeped in this mythology that revolutions are from the ground up. But it really isn't that way without the elites.
I was also really fascinated with the early Christians that started, bringing down the Roman Empire, who began to be elites, who began to believe in Christianity and became undermining the power structure. I thought the Baader-Meinhof group was always really interesting. I thought Red Brigade and the idea of also money. I really wanted to get initially, revolutions really need money.
Though the fear of losing all her fortunes has not pacified Mon Mothma into inaction, near constant Imperial surveillance has condemned her to secrecy. Like Luthen, she too lives a double life, working to finance the rebellion from the shadows, while she suffers the apathy of her senatorial peers and debaucherous husband Perrin, played by Alastair Mackenzie.
Must everything be boring and sad?
Her senatorial garb is not just superfluous costume design. Sometimes it's armor, every layer protecting her from the scrutinizing gaze of her Imperial sympathizing peers. Other times, it's a metaphorical distraction, like her speeches, charities, and petitions from her real intentions.
Because as long as everyone thinks I'm an irritation, there's a good chance they'll miss what I'm really doing.
What are you really doing?
Raising money.
If you want a revolution, you're gonna have to pay for it. As Mon Mothma confronts the audience with the obstacles a public-facing figure must overcome to support a rebellion, Aldhani introduces a very different kind of fundraising: bank robbing. These boots-on-the-ground freedom fighters, and their unique correspondence with Luthen,
Look at me!
could be attributed to a variety of underground resistance movements, but one in particular gave Gilroy all the inspiration he needed: the Tiflis bank heist of 1907, where a gang of criminals and prostitutes called the Outfit, commissioned by Vladimir Lenin, made away with 241,000 rubles, roughly $4 million in today's currency. From Tiflis, Gilroy and White devised a heist of proportional ambition to the galaxy of Andor.
Everyone's dead. While you were sleeping, they came in, slit everybody's throat.
Led by Faye Marseisvel Sartha, another secret-class traitor to Chandrilan royalty, and comprised of assassins, ex-stormtroopers, and former prisoners handpicked from Luthen's shadow network, the Aldhani rebels are every bit as motley as the Bolshevik outfit before them. Karis Nemik in particular, played by Alex Lothar, is a writer and ideologue, the kind of man that, next to rogues like Ebon Moss-Backrack's Arvel Skeen, feel out of place. But as always, history begs to differ. From Thomas Paine, Voltaire, Nikolai Chernyshevsky, or arguably Karl Marx, the sort of philosopher-poet that Nemik embodies can be found over and over in every revolution, fighting tyranny not so much with violence as they do with words and ideas.
Apparently the only thing keeping us from liberty is a few more ideas.
A few more ideas.
Now among the Star Wars outfit, Cassian evokes in character, and even in looks, the most infamous member of the Tiflis bank robbers, a young Izeb Jugashvili, better known to history as Joseph Stalin. A sharp-witted ruffian and street fighter from a poor family in Gori, Georgia, Jugashvili became one of Lenin's most trusted men by the 1907 heist, willing to do the dirty work that his peers were not. Like Cassian, Jugashvili adopted a practice employed by his fellow Bolsheviks, using different names to throw off the Russian Okhrana.
Clem, Kiev Gargo.
Varinsky. Ronnie Guja.
Nobody here gives their real name.
And just as Jugashvili's mother, KK Galadze, lived at once in an old, broken home on Sobanaya Street in Gori, Marva inhabits a perpetually cold home on Ricks Road, where she has lived virtually her whole life.
I know what I'm against. Everything else will have to wait. You're my ideal reader.
Though Cassian is not the sociopath and Soviet dictator in the making that young Stalin was, he's not sympathetic to the rebellion either. For him, Aldhani is a job, not an excuse to wax ideology. The background and motivations of the rebels that, for the audience, may be an afterthought, are a major source of distrust for Cassian. Their blatant oversights about the heist aren't helping things either.
What were you gonna do if I wasn't here?
Might have been ugly, but we'd have figured it out.
What are you doing?
And deep down, no matter how much potential Luthen or Nemec see in him, Cassian will never see the potential in the rebellion for himself. Not if it can't take him home.
I'm here to win and walk away.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
It's really only the money. To take a risk like this? Come on.
While there is a place for mercenaries like Cassian in many revolutionary wars, the rebels have as little reason to trust him as he does them. Not if he's against the one thing they've all agreed to: sacrifice. If you don't believe in the cause, a thing that's, in itself, puts the welfare of the galaxy above your own, can you even be counted on to put your life in harm's way? Are you even willing to sacrifice personal comfort in the first place?
I mean, you have nothing. You sleep like a stone.
Once again, Cassian reflected Gilroy's own feelings about the Herculean effort needed to build Andor, an entry into a franchise he did not care that much about and was only getting more complicated thanks to COVID.
So you think it's hopeless, do you? Freedom, independence, justice.
At the same time, it's hard to imagine surviving a production of Andor's scale without gaining some kind of conviction. And likewise for Cassian, it's hard to imagine carrying out a mission this dangerous, no matter the payout, without some belief in a greater purpose. Something greater than you.
They'll soon see. A surprise from above is never as shocking as one from below.
Months of planning for the rebels, and months of planning for Gilroy and White's Ireland production, finally culminate in The Eye, one of the most staggering achievements in all of Andor's first season. As White walks the rebels through every step of their plan, escalating tension and thrill with every camera movement and turn, editor John Gilroy intercuts the action with the rituals of the Aldhani people, a far less extraordinary and seemingly unimportant diversion from what is unfolding in the dam. On the contrary, the Donnies remind us what the rebels are fighting for in the first place: freedom from the rigid law and order of the Empire, a hope felt in the handheld cinematography of the ceremony, free from a rigid style of shooting, similar to the scenes that were shot on Kenari. Whatever goes down this evening, Aldhani will be remembered in the viewer's mind not as the place where colonizers forced a people into exile, but where a community of people persisted despite their fatigue. A hope unto all peoples displaced by tyrannical force, and a hope unto Cassian Andor, who could never save his community on Kenari, but might glean a sliver of the good he can do for the galaxy when those colonizers lose control.
They're in.
But a sliver of good can only go so far. It's not enough to employ terror, take hostages, or exploit Imperial ignorance. It will never be enough, because fascism is so much harder to dismantle than tonight has made it seem. When every inch of society has been subsumed by the Empire, a true rebel cannot be complicit or complacent in the systems that oppress them, not if their success depends on every one of those systems working in their favor. Not for this long.
We've grown reliant on Imperial tech and we've made ourselves vulnerable.
What is that?
It's a battle radio.
Looks Imperial. Not anymore.
Get ready. Kinsey should be calling in soon.
We're heading down to the vault. From the sky. Move! Let's go!
Despite the time, planning, and grueling effort they've sacrificed to ensure their success, all it takes is one misstep to spring the trap. As hell breaks loose, the docu-war film shooting style that grounded the battles of Rogue One returns with a vengeance in the Alkenzi Dam, grounding the chaos of a heist gone horribly wrong. characters we've only begun to learn about, are killed with little fanfare, their sacrifices met with no apparent reward, as if there was never a hope they were going to make it out alive. Like all notions of freedom and rebellion alike, hope just won't save you here. Nor will the eye, however rare, beautiful, and restorative it might be to the Donnies. To Cassian, this colorful distraction, much like the rebellion, is nothing more than a death sentence, and yet it falls on him to save it.
Where am I heading? I need lumber!
Why him? Why today? And just what is he supposed to do in a time like this?
Climb! Look at the window!
It is suicide, but it's not pointless. Not if you believe in something greater than yourself.
Imagine that no matter what you tell me or tell yourself, you'll ultimately die fighting these bastards. Wouldn't you rather give it all at once? Something real.
What'd you tell me? You want to win and walk away.
Why fight the Empire? Why believe in a cause? In a collective?
You're not here to save anybody but yourself.
Why put everything on the line? Because it's the right thing to do. Cassian knows it in his bones, and in a way Skeen never did. Because as much as both have grown dependent on themselves, Cassian has something Skeen probably never received: the love of a community. In this rebellion, there is a cause worth fighting for, and the knowledge of that, fully and finally accessible to him, couldn't be more terrifying.
I did everything I could.
It's not you, Doc.
And it's not what you think either.
Despite Luthen's hopes that Aldhani would make a rebel of Cassian, all it has made him is afraid. Afraid not of the Empire, but of the implications. If ideology is worth killing for, does that mean it's worth dying for? Dying when there's still so much for him to lose? So much to hold on to even harder than before?
Everything you've been through, everything that was taken away from you before you even started. Take all the money you found and go and find some peace.
We were doing a deal
You scam, you borrow, you lie, you disappear.
I won't have peace. I'll be worried about you all the time.
That's just love. Nothing you can do about that. You need to get as far away from here as you can.
Instead of facing those fears, Cassian bets his hand once more on his own survival and walks away for good.
Being Mexican American sometimes means that there is a disconnect to our parents. My dad didn't get why I was crying so hard when I was getting bullied in school. He said, "Just stand up for yourself." That is because in their childhood, they had different problems. Our pain looked very different. It created a distance between my parents and I. I carried this guilt, feeling like the reason why they could not live fulfilling lives. An immense pressure in order to repay my debt. Ni aquí, ni allá. Not from here, nor from there. That is how my entire life has felt.
But there is no walking away from Aldhani. History came knocking on Cassian's door, and now that it's open, it will not be shut. History is already in motion, and its next chapter is the nightmare of revolutionaries everywhere, all throughout history. If you want a revolution, you're gonna have to pay for it. The Declaratory Act of 1766, the Carlsbad Decrees of 1819, the September Laws of 1835, and the Punitive Campaigns of 1906. These were all massive pieces of legislation for their times, and all had one goal in common: killing revolutions while they were still in the crib. In Andor, Tony Gilroy and Stephen Schiff, who wrote the standalone episode Announcement, channeled fragments of all these decrees into what would become the Public Order Resentencing Directive, a violent escalation of Imperial surveillance, policing, and punishment, all in the supposed interest of security.
The Emperor will be convening an emergency session of the Senate to propose a legislation package of bills and amendments that will free our hands. Any criminal act, with even indirect effect on the Empire, will henceforth be branded a Class 1 offense.
However far the rebellion pushed the needle forward on Aldhani, the Empire was more than prepared to push it all the way back. Quite possibly for good. And what few areas of society that were free of Imperial control are now even fewer.
How much trouble am I in?
There's no trouble at all unless they scan the accounts.
But that's coming.
Time is not unlimited.
Not all revolutions succeed. Frankly, it can be argued that most of them do not. The Peasants' Revolt of 1381 in England, the 1781 conspiracy of the Three Antonios in colonial South America, the 1820 revolutions in Italy and Spain, the 1848 revolutions in Germany and Hungary, and of course, the June Rebellion of 1832. In nearly all of these examples, unarmed or ill-equipped liberals were suppressed by military forces or a faux alliance with the regime, who promised to appease the people's demands until they were pacified out of revolt. Unfortunately for the post-Aldhani galaxy, how Emperor Palpatine will suppress the growing tide of rebellion will characterize him in the same way many tyrannical leaders on the receiving end of revolution have been described throughout history. Uncooperative and reactionary, yet still abetted by a cult of personality.
Palpatine's frustrating, yes, we agree. Too easily provoked, yes. Overreactive, perhaps. Understatement? Says what he means.
Sometimes, revolution is not a powder keg. Without something to burn, it's a dying fire. Unless your tinder becomes the people.
Palpatine won't hesitate now.
Exactly. We need it. We need the fear. We need them to overreact.
You can't be serious.
The Empire has been choking us so slowly we're starting not to notice. The time has come to force their hand.
People will suffer.
That's the plan.
In Luthen's mind, this new wave of fascist terror is a necessary step in radicalizing the Emperor's loyal subjects. Through their heightened oppression, the people will be organically led into revolt. Contrary to the influence of Vladimir Lenin on Luthen, it is a line of thinking that has more in common with how Lenin's revolutionary predecessors thought than Lenin's actual theory for overthrowing Tsar Nicholas, where a tight-knit party of professional revolutionaries, what became the Bolsheviks, will seize power on their own without the people of Russia, a concept coined today as vanguardism. Until now, Luthen's network of rebels in Aldhani might have made up a small part of a vanguard party. But what Lenin's predecessors believed, the early Russian revolutionaries led by Georgy Plekhanov, was going to the people, instilling class consciousness in the peasantry, as we referenced earlier. Due to the overwhelming dominance of capitalism in Russia and crackdowns on political activity, it never worked. But one of the biggest reasons it failed became the basis for why it will seem unlikely in the Empire's galaxy as well. A terrifying reality that Cassian Andor will become far too acquainted with. The people are too tired to revolt. On Narkina 5, Gilroy, writer Beau Willimon, and director Toby Haynes crushed the audience's hopes for the rebellion in Shift 5-2D. Part prison, part Imperial labor camp, Narkina 5 is arguably the one place in Andor with the most ties to the thousands of years of history that Gilroy referenced. Countless human empires were built by slave labor. The Galactic Empire is no different. What they're building and why droids can't build it instead are irrelevant concerns here. There's no time for such questions. Not if you want to avoid getting fried. Who these people were before Narkina and what they did to end up here are just as irrelevant. In the bleach white, nondescript jumpsuits all must wear, everyone is virtually the same, erased of all agency, identity, and humanity, herded like cattle to the slaughter. Even composer Nicholas Bertel's score, which has evoked signature aspects of every planet in the instrumentation of his music, rips away its musicality for a bleaker sounding, synth-heavy score. However far you look for some semblance of hope in the Empire's panopticon, you'll only find that same hopelessness reflected back at you. Thousands of times over. Narkina 5 is the most intensely dehumanizing environment in all of the Empire. And somehow, it's not a deal breaker for everyone.
My name is Kino Loy. I'm the 52D unit manager. The 49 men in this room answer to me.
Andy Serkis's Kino Loy is the living counter-argument to Luthen's theory of revolution.
Off program!
Explaining the mechanics of the prison in terms of managers, shifts, and productivity, Kino is the kind of man Plekhanov's revolutionaries could not radicalize. The 12-hour factory worker, who had no time to study Karl Marx's writings about class consciousness, and thus believed their work had civic purpose to the Tsar's empire. Kino might even believe that the troubled men who enter through that door will find valuable discipline in such rigorous work. But Narkina 5 is not designed to reform troubled individuals. It's designed to create loyal workers, to build the most ideal subject in what is evidently not just a fascist empire, but a capitalist one too. A connection that was more than apparent in the factories of Alfred Krupp, a German industrialist who helped bail out the Nazi Party in 1933 and went on to become the leading weapons manufacturer in Germany during World War II.
Approximately 23,000 prisoners of war worked as slave laborers in Krupp plants between 1940 and 1945. Krupp used prisoners of war from various countries, often for armament production. In 1941, for example, the firm used French, Dutch, and Belgian prisoners of war to build submarines and other warships.
The economy needed a steady or growing development because of the rivalries between many political parties in Germany and the general disorder. There was never an opportunity for prosperity. We thought that Hitler would give us such a healthy environment. Indeed, he did do that. We Krupps never cared much about political ideas. We only wanted a system that worked well and allowed us to work unhindered. Politics is not our business.
But Cassian wasn't some disloyal worker that went on strike. He's not even here because of Aldhani. Not directly, anyway. Keith Gergo is only here because he looked like the kind of person who would cause trouble. Another thinly veiled nod to the bigoted scapegoating of fascist governments.
Keep looking around.
Just trying to figure out what's going on.
You a part of it?
Part of what?
Narkina 5 isn't just a labor camp, but a dumping ground for the undesirables, who, now more than ever, can be deposited here for any reason, under any pretense. He could try explaining that to Kino and any other inmate who holds as false an idea about the Empire as his. But what choice would he then have in being right? How do you persuade someone who will sooner see threats in his fellow inmates than the real enemy at the top? In reality, there is one choice and one choice only: compliance. It's hard enough not to be complicit in Imperial systems of control. It's even harder now after PORD.
Don't ever look at the number. Double, triple, it doesn't matter.
Hey!
You're in until they don't want you anymore.
Enough!
Get straight with that.
Why bother trying to resist it? Why not play along?
Play.
The Empire's new regulations, made without Senate consultation, I might add, are as cumbersome as they are avoidable. They've made a game of it, and we play.
In these disingenuous terms, those who've embraced their role as a cog in the Empire's machine don't have to think about freedom, dreams, or even fresh air. They don't have to, and likely won't, consider how trapped they truly are. How a home embassy, let alone a Bureau of Standards cubicle, can be another kind of prison in the Empire, conveyed in both Hull's polygonal production design and cinematographer Adriano Goldman's recurrent framing of that design. The fight to have a career you like, to be present in your daughter's life, or to walk down the street without feeling afraid are so unwinnable, they're not even worth fighting. Maybe you could go down swinging and die by your principles as a martyr, but could you really stomach the misery of that existence? Would anyone even notice you?
Who is it now? He railed it. Who? Demos. Demos. Table 3, the tall one. Now.
Maybe you don't fight. Maybe instead, you scream for help. You choose to believe in the goodness of people, that they will come running when you need them most.
We need to pull together, Saul. Whatever our final version of success looks like, there's no chance any of us can make it real on our own.
But in a galaxy so riddled with borders, plagued by the Empire's tactics of division, it's not always fear that will stop others from helping you. Sometimes it's ego. That you've been so conditioned to distrust everything and everyone, you'll sooner turn your back on your allies than raise a fist against the Empire. Of all sentiments about revolution in Andor, this one might be the most genuine. In the bid to elect the right leadership and agree on the right strategy for taking on the regime, most revolutions inevitably crumble under factionalism and infighting, and in doing so, never make it to the finish line. This was the case for the French Revolution's National Convention, the revolutionary government in 1792, after suffering the clash of ideologies and sub-ideologies for years until the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte in 1799. And it was also the case for the Russian Revolution's numerous leftist factions, many of whom emerged only from minute differences, such as the Bolshevik-Menshevik split in 1903 or the SR Combat Organization, the Russian revolutionary faction that most resembles Saw Gerrera's partisans, who believed their goals could only be achieved through political assassination and bomb throwing.
Krieger's a separatist. Maipes a neo-republican. The Gorman Front, the Partisan Alliance, sectorists, human cultists, galaxy petitionists. They're lost. All of them lost. Lost.
So maybe you keep your mouth shut because nobody's listening to begin with. You don't play along necessarily, but you do commit to a silent resistance. You build a fortress in the one place the Empire can't reach you.
Well, we'll find a place they haven't ruined yet.
I'm already there. That place is in my head. They can build as many barracks as they like, they'll never find me.
But in doing so, you become isolated. You succumb to something that excels at generating bitterness and disappointment towards everyone around you, whether they're an Imperial tool or as secretly opposed to every unjust decree as you. You never expel those feelings either, not when your rebellion hinges on holding firm to them. And so the same walls erected to keep fascist thinking at bay may also suppress your humanity.
I told you up front, the struggle will always come first.
We take what's left.
What are you, Luthen?
Maybe you don't want to know where that thinking leads. Because the one person who is listening and might have the means to topple an empire is one of the last people you should bet your life on. Luthen Rael has always been a mysterious and complicated figure, but the degree to which he has clung to his silence, devastated his peace of mind, and erased his humanity has forged him into something else entirely. Wielding his shadow network to achieve a terrifying omnipotence, Luthen is an unholy god among men. He's turned the galaxy into a chessboard, where each and every person has been objectified and is played as a chess piece. And like any good chess player, Luthen's goal is not to protect the pawns, it's to stop the king.
You willing to burn him? It's 30 men.
Plus Krieger.
So you know he's due. Which means either you're ISB, or you have someone inside that you are protecting.
Or I'm just a very good listener.
As many great revolutionary leaders as Luthen has embodied, he now foreshadows what tragically became of many of those leaders: a slide into autocratic thinking. Revolutionaries whose charisma and ability to inspire were outmatched only by their ego and eagerness to take power. And so, once they did, they became dictators. At first, to beat back loyalists of the old regime, but when those loyalists surrendered, the former revolutionaries would, in a fit of unchecked paranoia, turn their forces on the people. The examples of this, especially over the 20th century, are endless.
I yearned to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I looked down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
It may seem heroic to thanklessly devote as much to the rebellion as Luthen has, but make no mistake, if this man were ever to find his mere audience or light of gratitude, the galaxy might wish he hadn't. For the grain of humanity that still regards Lonnie Young with some level of sympathy would be buried forever.
What do I sacrifice? Everything!
Not all revolutions succeed. Whether they never fully materialize, transform a radical into a dictator, or are suppressed by tyrannical force, it can be argued that most revolutions fail. Workers are exhausted into subservience. Communities are divided by fear and violence. And lawmakers with some bone of justice in their bodies are made complicit in atrocity after atrocity. All the while, new fascists are bred right at home. At first, as deeply insecure adults never granted personal autonomy in their upbringing.
Imagine I'd cracked under the weight of your neglect. Imagine I'd cracked and wasn't here now to pick up the pieces.
And then as unknowing defenders of the regime, who perpetuate authoritarian thinking in their careers and relationships. Science and innovation are bent not in the interest of humanity, but in sating the Empire's ever-disturbing need to control everything. Technology is created not to perform miracles, but to paralyze dissent. And anyone actually capable of doing something is gunned down before they get the chance.
This is what revolution looks like, Belle.
You can definitely see how nothing is inevitable. And there are times in history where it just feels like every single thing is locking into place to make a revolution happen, and the revolution is going to explode, and then just like nothing happens. It fizzles out. Nothing is ever inevitable. Like nothing is written, and you might think it is, but it is not. And then things will happen that will surprise you, and things that you absolutely are dead certain will happen just do not happen at all.
As hopeful as the idea of revolution is, history has hardly yielded a consistent version of it, nor the assurance that it is inevitable. Revolutions are not inevitable, and history, on the contrary, does not repeat itself. At best, it only echoes, governed each time by new and unpredictable variables in the present. Cassian never asked to be born in this galaxy, in this century, in this time of tyranny. No one did. But in the end, compliance truly is the only choice. It is far easier, and maybe even natural, to do as the Empire says. It's not much of a life, but it beats every other option. Simply put, it is what it is. But even compliance isn't an option.
Inmates on program.
Not only can you be thrown in jail for any reason, but you could be thrown back in jail even after serving your sentence.
They made a mistake. A man who was just released on 4 ended up back on 2 the next day. Word got out on the floor and then they killed them all. If he was released, you heard me. No one's getting out, are they? Not now.
In the Empire, the notion that you even have an option is a lie. A complete illusion. One that will soon shatter for Kino Loy.
How many guards on each level?
Never more than 12.
Whatever the inmates of Narkina 5 are building, it couldn't possibly justify their torture. There is nothing fair about the Imperial system, for Narkina 5 or anywhere for that matter. Only the made-up laws that call it fair. There is no reason to suffer the exhaustion, and nothing worth surviving for.
No one is getting out!
Unless
Plan works around the new man coming down.
they destroy the system.
We are done with counting shifts. There is only then and now. There is only one way out. Play it how you want. But I'm gonna assume I'm already dead and take it from there.
What Kino Loy and the prisoners of Narkina 5 do have is that which the Empire has grown far too comfortable taking for granted for far too long. The very resource they've depended on to build their technological terrors, but could never expect to become the terror themselves. The people.
We have a situation on 5-2D. Repeat, we have a situation.
As Narkina 5 goes dark, Toby Haynes lights a powder keg. What erupts over the next several minutes, level by level, from person to person, is a small-scale revolution. A flood of violent upheaval, chaos, and music, as every Laren instrument that was once ripped from Bertel's score is returned with every prisoner freed. And all of it is unleashed by Cassian and Kino, who now take their place among a long list of revolutionaries who were radicalized in prison, educated other inmates, and escaped to continue their freedom-fighting cause. Kino in particular now steps into the same role as Toussaint Louverture, a former slave, plantation owner, and formative leader in the Haitian Revolution, who helped transform the fledgling slave rebellion into the first and only successful slave revolt in world history. Although the Narkina uprising resembles the Haitian Revolution's bloody beginnings far more than its professional stages, one reassuring truth amid the Haitian Revolution will reassure once again on Narkina 5. The administrators are vastly outnumbered by their own slaves.
On program! Now!
All yours.
As Kino steps into that very position, so many revolutionaries before him have stood, but were too vain to resist its autocratic pull. He is met with the same choice to seize power that they had.
We are, at this moment, in control of the facility.
What keeps him from acting on it?
Is that the best you got?
Is Cassian Andor. A man with no delusions of grandeur nor ambition for power. Only a newfound mission to return to the people who love him. Nothing more special than that. Imagine who's waiting for everyone here. It's about time they all come home.
There is one way out. Right now.
The building is ours.
We need to run, climb, kill.
You need to help each other. You see someone who's confused, someone who's lost.
You get them moving and you keep them moving until we put this place behind us.
There is one way out, and there has only ever been one way out of the Imperial system. It's not a comfortable journey, nor can it be done quietly. It can't be taken alone, and not always with people you agree with. But it is your best shot at getting home. Knowing that, why wait another day to break free? On Narkina 5, Cassian became the rebel recruiter that Luthen was to him back on Ferrix. He proved him right, albeit for a day, and proved his theory of revolution too. Though the sea of history is at his feet, Cassian now knows his true place is on Ferrix. There, he can finally make amends with Marva. He can finally go home.
Cass, hang on.
But there is no home.
Your mother's dead.
Cassian can never go home. Ever again.
It's just us. What if we're the only ones? People have to know about this.
Once people arrive on US soil, the disillusionment settles and an unfamiliar reality trickles in. The American dream evolves. For many undocumented people, this means working your life away, working till your back aches, feet swell, and hands hurt. When my dad was living in the United States, working 70-hour weeks, he often talked about how much he missed his family back home. He was heartbroken about not being able to even visit. Oftentimes, my family members had to grieve their family members back home, from a distance.
Andor had been a grueling work. Gilroy's creative and budgetary demands did not kill it. The pandemic did not kill it. And miraculously, the crew had emerged on the other end of a 9-month shoot relatively unscathed. But Gilroy was exhausted. So much of his existence since coming onto the show in 2019 had been occupied by script writing, set design, dailies, remote Zoom calls, sitting in the editing room with his brother, dropping in on Bertel's music writing sessions in Manhattan, and having countless conversations with cast, crew, ILM, and Lucasfilm personnel, day after day after day. He and his team had effectively made 4 movies, back to back. Whatever naive notion Gilroy once held that this was a job and nothing more had faded ages ago. Andor began as Gilroy's chance to look back at a lifelong pastime. But it had become so much more than that in the end, hadn't it? By the season 1 finale Rick's Road, directed by Ben Karen, Andor was seeing the cast of nobody characters on Ferrix that Gilroy once begged the audience to care about, one by one, get slowly choked by Imperial occupation. The once bustling streets are now empty by sundown, and stormtroopers, more monolithic and inhuman than they've ever been portrayed, stand watch day and night. The rebellion, a mere skeleton of the heroic alliance they will eventually become, has just willingly handed the ISB 30 dead rebel fighters, plus Anto Krieger.
We get nothing from a dead body. Someone needs to be in the room saying that.
You're missing the point.
Today was about wiping the taste of Aldhani from the Emperor's mouth.
Now that same rebellion is here to gun down yet one more of their own, renouncing his revolutionary potential. Luthen's shadow network is practically drowning in its own darkness, eating its own tail, indiscernible from the darkness of the Empire surrounding them. If they just took a long look in the mirror, they would finally see the problem at the heart of their cause. It has no heart.
Come away from the window.
When history calls, morality may not be in the conversation. History may not repeat itself and lend to a far more uncertain present than we realize. But for both of these reasons, by the arrival of Rick's Road, Gilroy was no longer looking back at history purely for the sake of looking back. His revolutionary study had become a revolutionary plea. Give a shit.
Where's Biggs?
Worry for the oppressed stranger you've never met, for the family struggling to put food on the table, the refugee just looking for a place to sleep, and the citizen under threat for simply existing, as much as you worry for the friend that lives down the street in a world you know like the back of your hand. It's not enough to hate the Empire from afar, placated by some understanding that everything will come to pass because it has always come to pass. History is past and present. Though it is told with or without our intervention, we are the motor force that drives it. That because what is happening today has never happened before exactly as it has happened before, we get to decide its trajectory. We are the revolution. But only if we act.
There will be times when the struggle seems impossible. I know this already. Alone, unsure, dwarfed by the scale of the enemy.
Nemik's manifesto, initially dismissed by Cassian, now becomes the thing that fueled so many people throughout history to act. Thomas Paine's Common Sense in the American Revolution, Emmanuel Sieyès' What is the Third Estate in the French Revolution, Lenin's What is to be Done in the Russian Revolution, Simón Bolívar's Cartagena Manifesto in the War for Spanish-American Independence, and countless other writings that spread awareness, educated the common folk, and declared dissent. Now embracing it, Nemik's manifesto will instill in Cassian an all-new mission. He has been beaten, fried, and made to feel like nothing. He has been forced, time and time again, to let go of almost everyone and every place that has brought his life meaning. In the face of the Empire, he stands to lose even more. But Cassian will not let go of Marva. He will not let go of his sister. And he will not let go of all the unfairness he's ever been dealt, as if none of it ever happened, nor the people of Ferrix, as if their existence never mattered. So long as he holds on to all of it, they will never be less than what he makes of them.
You take care of yourself. It's too late for that.
For Cassian Andor, this life is no longer worth living unless it is devoted, heart and soul, to saving everyone who has ever felt the gun pointed at their head. Everyone he has ever loved and has yet to love. Of course, he can't do it alone. But he's not alone.
Random acts of insurrection are occurring constantly throughout the galaxy. There are whole armies, battalions that have no idea that they've already enlisted in the cause.
1,000 faces flank Cassian Andor. Revolutionaries across time and space, all just as willing to defy the darkness. Likely, there are 1,000 more soon on the way. And together, they will burn the Empire to the fucking ground.
Remember this.
try.
What's going on?
I'm not sure.
Where Nemec's manifesto enshrined the necessity of writers in any rebellion, the Ferrix Funerary March for Marva Andor does the same for musicians, and in turn emphasizes the value of all forms of resistance. All the painters, poets, and filmmakers across history who expressed grief, radicalized minds, and envisioned a better world. Revolution has never been solely composed of wars, rioting, or violence. For the people of Ferrix, the memory of one of its daughters and the music to commemorate her was all that was ever needed to unite. Assembled in defiance of the Empire's tactics of division, the marchers are flanked by historic marches of their own. The Provisional Irish Republican Army Funeral March during the Troubles, the Women's March on Versailles in 1789, the Rio Blanco Strike in 1907, the Tony Pandy minor riots in South Wales in 1910, and of course, the funeral procession for French General Jean-Maximilien Lamarck in 1832. This was the first song Bertel wrote for Andor, and in many ways became a fitting preview for what the rest of his score would become. Layered and melancholic, but capable of evoking something deeply hopeful beneath its sadness. That is, if you take the time to listen. The Empire, in all its inhuman, uncultured swinery, will not listen. But that's exactly why they'll be caught off guard when that music explodes. The Empire can shout orders, rally soldiers, and build all the barriers they want. But nothing they do will seem so effortless as a united people marching forward, that which will flood the banks of their authority for good. They will have their agency, identity, and humanity erased by the Empire no longer. And who better to make that point clear than someone already erased? Marva Andor, about to become history herself, but not in any way the Empire imagines.
I was 6, I think. First time I touched a funerary stone. Heard our music. Felt our history.
Where Nemec's manifesto put into words the conviction Cassian had come to develop, Marva's speech puts into words what Gilroy had, by the end of Andor, been convicted of himself. Of course, on its own, Marva's speech evokes many different pleas made throughout history. Father Hidalgo's cry of Dolores, inspiring Mexican citizens to rise up against the Spanish colonial government in 1811, or the speech Camille Desmoulins made to inspire a French mob to storm the Bastille in 1789. But Marva's speech evokes considerably more than that. It is, in itself, Andor's most reflexive moment. Why all the history bursting out of this show is not just what inspired it, but what makes it inspiring. We need history.
I always wanted to be lifted. I was always eager, always waiting to be inspired. I remember every time it happened, every time the dead lifted me with their truth. And now I'm dead. And I yearn to lift you.
For all the reasons the French Revolution was studied for decades after by new generations of revolutionaries across the globe, history serves a potent purpose to every version of our present. Its truth is not retold only in recreation or for academics only, but to instruct all of us, to learn from the trials and tribulations of those who stood in very similar shoes at another place in time.
It's because I want you to go on. I want Ferrix to continue.
It is important, not as a one-to-one guide, but to envision what could be done differently, to avoid the same mistakes.
The Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness. It is never more alive than when we sleep.
For we may have the desire to do good, and the community willing to carry out that good alongside us, but it may not be until you realize how many times an empire has tried, violently, to erase a people, that you know in your bones exactly what needs to be done, and that it might be possible.
If I could do it again, I'd wake up early and be fighting these bastards from the start. Fight the Empire!
What erupts on Ferrix is the 5 days in Milan, the storming of the Bastille, Russia's Bloody Sunday, the brick herd round the world, and the bombing of the British-occupied King David Hotel by the Irgun fighters. It is all of the past exploding into the present, for better and for worse. For as much as the Phyrexians are willing to lay on the line to drive off the Empire, they've now handed the reins to their future to the chaos of what a revolution can become.
There's no one out there. Come on.
Don't get angry.
It is tear gas, scorched bodies, broken spirits, and the gravel of the revolution finally meeting the road. It is exactly what Luthen has long worked from the shadows to build, but can never openly claim responsibility for, nor publicly take the lead of. Not with hands as dirty, or an ego as dangerous as his. Instead, he must watch from afar. This, right here, could be the moment the rebellion takes off. But it's missing one thing. The real leader of the Ferrix uprising. Someone who values life and the lives of others just a bit more than the cause. They'll stomach the dirty work, but only because it'll keep their loved ones safe. For the rebellion has enough scoundrels, mercenaries, lowlifes, and thieves. It's about time it had compassion. About time.
Kill me.
It had a hero.
Or take me in.
From the beginning, Andor was not conceived of the mythological framework of Star Wars. Magical powers, heroic knights, and clearly defined good and evil were never part of the equation. But one value of the mythology did make its way into Andor. A real, genuine transformation of character. Cassian Andor is not the same man we met on Morlana 1. He's not yet the man we'll know by Rogue One either, but he is on his way. And quite possibly, so was Tony Gilroy.
For you that I sing.
To Cassian, these greater notions of destiny are not important and might as well be imaginary. After all he has ever wanted was to go home. The Empire, over and over, and especially today, has deemed otherwise. That much hasn't changed. But in one final look at all the people he saved on Ferrix, Jezzy, B2, Will, Brasso, and Bix, Cassian realizes the one thing that has.
You'll find her. Cassian will find her.
I will. I'll find a way.
Home found him.
I'll fight you.
Keep flying your kites around. You're a flame burning bright. Never give up the fight. Keep banging your drum. Stand up in this wicked world. Shout out, let your voice be heard. You're a flame burning bright. Never give up the fight. Keep singing your song. And you could be just like a shining light. In this the darkest star. In this the darkest night. And you could be an answer to our prayer. Like a savior's
Hello everyone, welcome to the end of the video. Congratulations on getting here, because of course this was a long video, so I don't take it lightly that you clicked on it and then took the time to watch the whole thing. Whether you liked what I did, whether or not it resonated with you, whether you agreed with some of my points and assertions, it really does mean a lot that you gave me your time to do that. So thank you so much. This video took a long time to make. Indeed, I've been working on it since the Rogue One video that you saw back in the spring of last year. There have been, you know, obstacles and various twists and turns along the way that, you know, kind of got in the way and pushed this thing further and further out. You know, as you can sort of see from watching it, or at least surmise, a lot of that time was spent researching this thing, just double checking everything to make sure I got everything right. A huge shout out to Mike Duncan, who is a historian and history podcaster. His Revolutions podcast was a big inspiration for the topic of this video and really gave me like a really good starting point for a lot of the stuff I talked about in this project. Otherwise, a lot of the other sources that I cited for this video are all in a Google Doc that is in the description below. But if any, during the watching of this, that, you know, if while you're watching this, you picked up on anything that you thought I was maybe off on or was citing incorrectly or whatever the case, something that I got wrong, let me know in the comments below. Genuinely, I want to know that. And if it's something that's a glaring enough mistake that I do want to leave a correction for other viewers, then I'll note this in like a pinned comment at the top of the comment section or something. A big shout out as well to a lot of my friends who jumped in and helped me with the narration that you heard at various points throughout this video. Mike, Ahsoka X Tano, Arkin, who's a fellow YouTuber who does Star Wars video essays, or at least he did one last year that you should check out. And then as well, a big shout out to my friends Keegan and Nath, who are both like filmmakers working on some cool projects very soon. I put their socials, I put all their socials below, but you should definitely follow what they're doing in particular, because they're trying to crowdfund some projects soon. I don't know how much I can say from what they've told me, but it's really cool. So please go support them. And then a very big shout out, of course, to our Patreon supporters, especially the Art of Interactive Storytelling, Matt Hansen, Heimer82J, Davey Karcheski, Sketchy with several Y's, Rob J, George Perez, the Big E himself, Jack Clock, E, Sam Deca, T. Ledoux, and Tors. Y'all rock. And you too can support me and all my endeavors with future videos by going to patreon.com/rtourpresents. For the next month, from when this video drops, actually, the next 30 days, all of my content on Patreon will be free. So that includes all of my weekly vlogs, my monthly podcast, the monthly newsletter, basically just to give you a taste of what it's like to be on Patreon. And if indeed after it's all done you want to stick around and throw some monies to become a member, some monies, I've never said that before in my life, some dollars to become a member, I would really appreciate that a lot. If not, I appreciate you joining for free and checking it out. Either way, you should join for free, because after these 30 days, a piece of content that I do that will remain free is RTOR Monthly. That's something I'm going to be doing going forward, free for everyone. And it's basically just a monthly update of everything I'm working on. So if you're tired of these the fucking almost year-long droughts where it's like, hey, is Parks alive? Is he even working on anything? You can follow me on Patreon and see that I am indeed working on stuff, and exactly what stuff am I working on every month. So go do that. I want to pay it forward to a couple more creators as well, for no other reason other than just supporting the community. These are some cool videos you should check out, including Women in Star Wars and the Ethics of Visual Representation by Piper Greisel, The Overlooked Visual Design of the Phantom Menace by Midnight SP, Star Wars as a Documentary by Empire Records. A lot of this channel's content, I gotta say, really good. This guy is awesome. One of my favorite recent video essays that I've come across. The Aesthetics of Fascism, Ben Hoerman. This channel, also hidden gem. You should go support this guy's stuff. And then finally, Thus Always to Tyrants, The Politics of Star Wars by my good friend Arkin the American, which I shouted out earlier. Please go check out all those creators. And then finally, some really good charities I want to shout out. I promise this is the last of the shout outs for this end of the video. The Palestine Children's Relief Fund, the Danun Mutual Aid. I'm probably screwing up the pronunciation there, but this is a Palestinian owned and run charity supporting relief in Palestine. The Khartoum Aid Kitchen, again, pronunciation, it's on the screen right now, but basically they're an aid kitchen working in Sudan. during the Sudan refugee crisis, which, if you've heard anything about, is a very bad and very awful humanitarian crisis happening right now. So please go support that, as well as the Hope and Haven for Refugees, which again is helping Sudan refugees amid the same crisis. And then finally, the American Civil Liberties Union here in America. Next up on the channel, next things I'm working on, I'm just gonna spill all the beans right now. The next couple things I'm working on are Ghost of Tsushima, Daredevil, and a video on Clair Obscur Expedition 33, the GOAT game of 2025, in my opinion. And then as for a video on Andor Season 2, I'm going to be working on this video in the background for pretty much the next year, just because of how demanding this video was, and I imagine the work will be similar for the next Andor video. So I'll check back in with y'all in a year if you're only here for Andor with that video. Go follow me on Instagram at Parks Harmon, Blue Sky Parks Harmon, and now twitch.tv/Parks Harmon, which is a new URL there. And also, I'm back to streaming. I was not streaming for about 2 years, but now I'm back. So I'm streaming every week on Thursdays, and currently we're playing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, enjoying it quite a bit. And that's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching one last time. I appreciate it so much. Remember, think local, act local. May the Force be with you, and never forget, you have friends everywhere. Thank you again one last time, and I'll see you all on the next video. Bye, everyone. Happy New Year.